Morning there. We are gonna do we're gonna drill holes in the new bridge for the 1938 vintage 1938 D18 that I've been working on. Here's the original bridge. This is one that's been shaved. I used this one to demonstrate whether or not the hole spacing was graduated. And I demonstrated to my absolute satisfaction that the spacing is graduated. Plus, I have another 1938 D18 in here that I recorded a couple of videos ago. And I showed you, in fact, I did the evaluation on that one. And I showed you that I really suspected the holes were graduated. So, I need to make a good copy on this bridge. This is a 1938 D18. Not as 1970s. I treat 70s with a lot of respect, but the difference is that when I'm doing the 70s, I'm modifying it, and I'm going to modify it the way I want it, and forget the vintage thing. But when you're doing something like a 1938, you have to really respect the heritage of the guitar, the vintageness of the guitar, the rarity of the thing, all that sort of thing. And so it's a different mindset there. You want to get it as absolutely close to the original as possible. You'll never make it to the original. Now, I'm going to make one change on this, and I'll tell you that, is when I cut the saddle slot, I'm not going to cut it necessarily where this one was, because this one's a little out of tune. And I showed you that on the other 1938 when we were evaluating it. The saddle's a little too far forward. In fact, it's almost an eighth of an inch forward. Almost as bad as the 70s. It makes no sense to me, sadly, to duplicate vintage mistakes. And so we're going to get that in tune, and I'm going to scoot that saddle back a little bit. It's not going to look totally vintage, but you know what? We all know this is a replica bridge. This is not the original bridge. Here's the original bridge. It's in your hand. If you want to put it back on, you can. But it's been shaved. So, at some point you just have to, are you going to replicate that vintage mistake, or are you going to get it right? So, I'm going to get it right. But as far as the pinholes go, it's kind of challenging to get a graduated spacing in there, and I've learned a lot from this. So I have spent yesterday, the day before, I spent hours in here working with the jigs. I've watched a video of John Arnold doing these things, and I realized that he's using some jigs and some shaping things, and I realized I'm going to step up my bridge making game, because bridge making is one of the things that I really hate to do. The reason is I freehand the bridge on my belt sander over here, and freehanding is great. You got control over it, but there's this little demon that sits on top of the belt sander right here. See him? See him right here? See that demon? You see him? You guys can see it, right? There's a demon that sits right there on that belt sander, and all he does is wait for an opportunity to ruin it for you. So freehanding is cool, but man, there's a lot of opportunity for mistakes. And that's why I don't like making bridges, because I hate it when I get down to the last step and I blow it. Because I've been doing it that way for 25 years, I am a little nervous about doing this one, but it's kind of like Alex Honnold climbing. He's confident because he's prepped, he's practiced. So that's kind of my philosophy on this thing. I'm going to get it because I'm confident and I'm practiced. What I did the other day was I took some bridges of mine that for some reason or another were rejected. It's off center. So there's a perfect example of a very nice bridge, but there's a little bit more space over here than there is over here. If you see that, I blew the measurement somehow or another. I'm not sure what the problem is on this one. Anyway, these bridges all have problems, so I used them in the jigs to practice. Now here's one that I really worked on, and I worked hard on that back angle right there. I worked hard on these angles. I made sure that it was going to cut straight across right here. And I reshaped this, and this bridge is probably pretty functional right now. I'm not sure what's wrong with this one. It might go on something someday. You might have a crack in it, whatever. So I spent all afternoon setting up jigs. This is a Stumac bridge. I practiced holes in that one, and see, I found a mistake here, but I fixed that on the fly, and I got that. So I feel pretty confident in my jigs, and I'm working on now the actual bridge that's going on there. Now, this was a T.J. Thompson bridge, and we got it in, and there was a couple things I didn't like about it. There was a lot I really liked about it. I mean, the shape is beautiful. The curve on the back is really good, but the wings were too thick. This bridge here that came off is 105 and 110. Actually, the other way around, I'm sorry. 110 and 105. So the thickness of this wing is 105. Thickness of this is 110. As good as I could measure on the other 38, because it's still on the guitar, but I put the calipers as a deprecate. Same thing. And this bridge came in and it was 130 and 125. And when I set it next to the original 38, I mean, you could just see the wings were too tall, and as a result, the curve was not exaggerated enough, because the height of the bridge is here. So if the wing came up to here, you would have a very shallow curve. You drop the bridge down to here, and you come up that steep curve, and it just didn't look quite right. So this was the first bridge that I ran on my jig to get these shoulders where I wanted them, where I thought it was more original. And oddly enough, the Stumac bridge is pretty close, except that it's thicker on the treble side. But I now have the jigs and the ability to fix things like that I don't like, okay? And I felt terrible, about modifying a T.J. Thompson bridge, because, like, who am I, But, I mean, it was taller than what I wanted. It was taller than the original that it's off. It's taller than the other 38. So I modified it. Now, everything else is fantastic. I didn't touch a single thing on anything else, except, I haven't done it yet, but the front edge here is going to get curved a little bit more. I don't have the original 38 in here. This is I mimicked it on this one. I copied it on this one. The front edge has got to be curved just a little bit more than this one. At least it is on the other 38 bridge. And that's one of the comments that some people have on the Martin guitar forums. I've seen a couple of bridges that I didn't identify, and I said, critique this bridge, and a couple of people said that front edge is not curved enough. They put pictures up, and yeah, I mean, this front edge needs to be curved just a little bit more, which is easy to do. When you curve that front edge, you make the C shape here. I call it the C shape. I'm not sure what it's technically called, but what it is right here, and the way that little curve comes up. And so when I'm looking at this bridge here, I see a C shape, a bracket, you see? And let's see, right here, right there, and right there. And so if you look at this one, it's pretty close, but it's going to make that C shape just a little bit more. This one's good. I'm not touching that. That was going to be just a little bit more when I round that off a little bit. I'll get to that, though. All right, so what we got to do, I'm getting ready to drill the holes on this. Two things you got to figure out here. First of all, here's my test hole. Second of all, here is a jig that I made using graduated spacing. It is EADGB. I used some combination of measurements here, because remember in the other video I was talking about graduated bridge spacing. I had a couple different ways that I was trying to get the measurement off of this bridge, which is not the easiest thing in the world to do, because you can't just flop your calipers into the middle of the holes if you want to be accurate. So here's what I did, okay? So let me pull the camera over here, and I'm going to show you. I took a transfer punch. This is a transfer punch. It's got a certain gauge, a thickness to it, and there's a pin right in the smack dab center of it. If you take this transfer punch and you push it up through the bottom of the hole, or through the bottom of the bridge like this, you can see it sticking up right there, and there's the point. At this point, this thing's pretty tight in here. So what I did, So I walked over here to my vise and I clamped this transfer punch down here pretty tight or pretty low. Set the bridge on top of it like that and get the whole thing nice and flush on your thing so it's not wobbling back and forth. Now that bridge is nice and solid. Then what I did is get my calipers, and I'll bring the camera over here as best as I can, but you go like this and you point it on there and you line the tip of that thing up with the caliper and you can see it pretty good. Let me grab something bigger to look at. Here's a pencil, okay? So watch the point of this pencil, see? And you get that pencil up there like this, and obviously that's not it, but when you get it right there, you can line it up pretty good. And again, you know, there's a point where you're going to have to call it good enough. You're going to have to say that's the best I can measurement. And I guarantee you that that kind of measurement is better than using this. Sliding that thing out there, you know, are you in the middle of that line or on the, you know, it's tough. So here's what I did then. Let's take this over here and I'm going to show it to you. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see it totally, but I think you get the idea. So you get this caliper up here, and I think you can see that. So you pull that back from here, and it's not lined up at the point right there, which I can see, you know. I can see that. Pull that right there, line it up right there, and boom, there's my measurement, which is right there. 1.870. 1.870. Then what I did is flip the bridge around. So let's go back over here. You watch me. Take the bridge off, and it's clamped in the vise, so my finger's going to stay there. And you flip it over to the other side, and you check that measurement. Well, you know, they may or may not be the same. You know, you can't assume that they're going to be the same. I'm going with all this accuracy stuff, and who knows whether or not the Martin factory got that accurate, you know? So you're trying to reverse engineer this thing without having the actual specs in hand. But I found out that they, in fact, were pretty even. 1.870 got both points, okay? Super. Now you got to get that over to this bridge. So same deal here. Mark it on there with a pencil. So I marked it with a pencil. Did that. I also used the same technique to get the distance from the front edge to the middle. So right here, this distance. Okay? So I put that pin in there, clamped it, and I moved this over there until I got this dead on that, right in the middle of that point there. Make sure you remember that point. I am putting the edge of that thing right on that point. So if you're looking at a hole like this, we've got to go to the middle of the hole and not the edge of it. Now, that's why I wanted to use the smallest holes possible here, because it's easier to see where the middle is. Now, I might be 2/1000 of an inch off. You know, again, you can only get as accurate as you can get. And 2/1000 of an inch is a human hair. It's going to be really hard to see that. But we're close. You know, we're way better than using a yardstick or a ruler. So I have two measurements here. This one is distance in here. This way. I'll mark that with a pencil just for a rough guide, because measure twice, cut once. You ever know what that means? What that means, you know, and if somebody's never explained that to you, it's like measure twice. And so, you know, you go here, oh, I measured that. Oh, yeah, I measured again. It's the same thing. That's not what it means. What it means is you measure it like this. You mark it with your marker. And then you set this aside for a second and you get a sip of Monster Energy. And you think about life. And then you come back with your gauge again. And you see where you put the pencil mark, okay? So I look at this like that. And I go, okay. So the center the exact drop off of this thing is sitting right in front of that pencil mark. So this pencil mark is not really where I want to be. I want to be right in front of that pencil mark in order to get the cutoff edge on that thing. Because remember, I had the edge of this totally and as perfectly as I could do it, bisecting that peak right there. So the mark I want is if I was able to actually take an extremely fine. I mean, what I'm going to do is take a laser and cut right on the absolute edge of this shelf here. The pencil is not on there. The pencil is back. A pencil width. And there's actually a tiny little, if you look very closely, close enough, there's actually a very, very tiny gap between that pencil line and this edge. Because the pencil lead can't get right up in there. It just can't, you know. That's what they mean by measure twice. So you measure, you make your mark, and you come back in and you see where that mark is to where it needs to be. So when I lay my mark down, it needs to be on the forward edge of this pencil. So that's the cutting part. Measure twice. You measure it, you draw your line, and then you measure it again to see where your line is, according to where you want to put it. Because if you ever cut framing or anything, you know, when you measure the second time, you're going to say, oh man, look at that. I did a really good one on that one. I need to cut that pencil line in half. Pencil line is just a smidgen over here. I need to cut in front of the pencil line on this one. And when you measure it twice, you figure that out and you look at it. It'd be wonderful if you can get your pencil line consistent every single time, and you can't. You know, you cannot do it. You're not a machine. I don't even know if machines can do it. I'd like to believe that a CNC machine could do it that accurately, but I don't know. I don't know how accurate they really are. Point. First thing I'm going to do here, this is my first critical mark right there. And so when I lay this on here like this, I want to bisect that tiny little hole. I want to bisect that tiny little hole with the edge of this measuring device. I don't want the hole to be on the front. I don't want the hole to be inside. I want to bisect that hole as close as I can. And that's why I have a tiny, 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 tiny little hole here. So I go like this and I measure it. And I can see I am bisecting the hole. I don't think it's quite perfectly in half, but I'm getting some of that hole. So, getting some of that hole right there. Knowing that, there's a couple things I can do. One thing is take a bigger punch and fudge that forward a little bit. Move that hole forward just a little bit. On the other hand, it's pretty good, you know. How accurate can you absolutely get it? Same thing when I do this measurement coming in. I wonder if I have a gauge for that still. No, I don't think I reset one. Hold on. I've got 3 of these things. Where's the third one? There it is. Yeah, I use these a lot, man. Once you lock these in, they're pretty handy. They're better than the calipers in a sense because you say that. I can clear that. In fact, it's not bad. So I can do this and actually get that line out there. In fact, I'm just going to adjust these. The calipers are not quite deep enough, and it'd be better if it was an unformed bridge because then you'd have, that is a lot easier, actually, This is pretty good. I've got a flat surface. But when I'm dealing with this surface, I've got to deal with this curve right here. It's a little awkward. So why don't you drill from the bottom, Kimsey? Well, I already explained that because when you drill through the bottom, you've got to go through all this wood. And if that drill bit deviates at all, I mean, look at the kind of fanatical precision I'm trying to get here. And if that drill bit moves 0.02 of an inch, it's going to look crooked. It's not going to be right. So I like to drill from the top because that's the part you look at, that's the part you see. I really don't care if the holes on the bottom are a little crooked. I I don't see them. They're down in there. I don't care. What I see is this. And you know what my mantra is, if it looks good, it is good. So that's what we're dealing with. So I'm going to reset this gauge here. It's not going to take very long. I do use this gauge for this purpose. But this is for 70s bridges and stuff, and I have not been quite this fanatical about this measurement yet. Man, I'm just trying to skeet this thing off. Tiny little bit here. I gotta go about thousandths of an inch here. I'm sure they make micrometers tools like this. Looks good. Everybody's lined up. Yeah, I like that now. Now when I come to this, I can hold it up straight like this. Yeah, let's see what we did. See, that says it's a little too far back. Interesting. Let's check this one. See, that marker, pencil marker's good. My hole is a little bit off here, according to this one. Just a tiny smidgen. Yeah, it could be. Which one's right? Let's measure this and see. I already know 870. Let's actually measure this and see. See if I'm right. This might not be right just because I was eyeballing it. I have to go run this in the vise. I need another hand. Okay, here we go. Perfect. 870. That's nice to know. So, good thing I checked it like that, because I think I need to scoot that hole over just a little bit. This one, so this is the measure twice part. I've got holes on there that I measured. Now I'm measuring to see where I got the line. So if I look at this, I need to be back from this line just a little bit. That's what happened on this bridge, you see. I said scoot them both back a little bit, and it was correct. So this hole here, this line, or this measurement is coming to the far edge of that hole. That's all it is. It's really close, but it's not quite there. Yeah, it's right on. I need to move that hole over. I'd feel more comfortable if I did, because I can't even use this thing. And I don't. This the problem with my jig. The problem with this jig is that, well, when you put it on, you can't see anything. It's supposed to line up to the front here, but it wobbles because this bridge is curved, and so I don't know about the jig. I think I've been measuring it by hand, putting a tiny little mark. We'll get there. Anyway, I think I need to move that hole back a little bit, and it's going to disappear as soon as I drill it, because obviously the drill hole is going to be bigger, so I don't mind fudging that hole over. So I'm going to take this bigger punch and my hammer, which is here. We'll get right on that thing. Right there. Move that hole back. Oops. There. See that? I'm bisecting the hole now. So, you know, I feel good about that. I feel good about that. Yeah, I'm bisecting that hole. Okay, one sec. Here's the thing I stole from John Arnold's. again. I get a lot of things from John Arnold. I'm trying to get my camera here. The little GoPro tripod does not quite adjust well enough for me. But anyway, what I have is a stick here, which is clamped on, and this is my depth gauge right here, which remember, I'm happy with this distance. I'm just concerned about this distance coming side to side. So let's see. Here's the other one I drilled previously. Let's see if that still fits, you know. And what this does is gives you a consistent distance right here. Consistent distance. So you put this in right there, and no matter which hole is there, you're going to get it. That's pretty good. This is what I did on this one. So I'm happy with that. There we go, see? So, excuse me. I set this up. I set this rail up using the tools. And then I brought this other bridge in and I dropped it in there. And guess what? It fit the hole again. So that means that my replication of that was pretty accurate. Yeah. So that fits perfectly in there. Fits beautifully. So now I feel comfortable that when I pull that and drill that hole, I'm going to be the right distance away because I've replicated it 2 or 3 times. And again, I know this is a long and boring video and you just want to see me drill the stupid holes. But I'm telling you, the prep, you got to think of Alex. I got one shot to get this right. Now, I'm not going to fall off a building and die or fall off of El Cap and die. But I'm going to ruin this bridge if I don't get it right. I got one shot to get this bridge right. So all the prep, checking. People criticize me sometimes for measuring nut slots. Well, you don't have to measure the nut slot with the feeler gauge if you just push the fret down. Yeah, but I'm checking and double checking and triple checking. And sometimes I make mistakes, but I know immediately that I've made a mistake. You see what I mean? You know, I know immediately when it's not perfect. Whereas other people just blithely go along and make mistakes and never even know it. It must be nice. Okay, so I'm prepping. Now I'm confident that when I push this thing up here like this and get in here and drill this hole right there, and I can see it, the hole's a little bit enlarged, so the bit wants to go this way or that way, and then I want to go in a little bit. So I'm going to make sure I drill on this side of the hole. So in other words, I could drill on this side of the hole, I could drill on that side of this tiny little hole. I'm going to make sure I drill on the inside side because that's what's slightly which way I want it to go. Check it. Check. And there we go. I'm going to hold it. I'm going to turn the drill press on. I'm going to drill this hole. Then I can use the jig. I think I used the jig before, and what I did was I took a drill bit. I used a 3/32 of an inch drill bit, and I put it through the jig into this hole, and that held it in place. And then I tapped the other holes just to give me my distance, and we're going to get there. And then I checked it with the calipers, and then I put it up here. If you have a tiny little hole in here, your drill bit will take care of it. In other words, like this, I can drill on one side of the hole or the other side of the hole. So I've not touched this bridge. Here we go. We're going to drill this hole, and I'm not going to drill it all the way through. I'm going to drill it part way, okay? First thing I'm going to do before I even do this, I'm going to turn the press on and make sure that drill bit is spinning pretty accurately. I like it. These are really, really short brads, and so they don't wobble. But my God, you know, the chuck gets loose, and, you know, there's just a million zillion things that can go wrong. I've already checked the drill bit for level. Check it again. That's good. I mean, and to go this way too. That's pretty good. Nothing I can do about this. I don't think. One of these days I'm going to get a better drill press. This is, you know, this looks pretty good, but customer of mine, Daniel, bought me a Shop Fox drill press, and there's a couple things I don't like about it, but there's a lot of things that I really like about it. Like the center insert comes out, and so you can automatically use a two inch thing like this, and it'll automatically go down through the center of my plate here. On this one, I had to make a false center. The shop box has got a built-in vacuum port, which I just noticed the other day. I made to clamp the vacuum hose on there, and I'm going, oh, look at that. It's got a built-in vacuum port. It also has an oscillation feature so that this thing just goes up and down automatically, which is really, really good for smoothing out these because it goes up and down automatically and you don't get the grain lines in there. So the only one thing I don't like about it is it doesn't have a lever to move the table up and down. You loosen it and then you got to move the table manually. Such a small thing for the other features that I found out are really good. So I really like that shop box, and thank you, Daniel, for sending that to me. Really appreciate that. So, in fact, I've got to put a shout out to Mike too, because Mike sent me the GoPro that I'm using. You know, I mentioned in a video, I said, man, I need a GoPro with a forward camera. About a week later, it shows up from my customer, Mike, and whose guitars I'm working on here. And I've been using that GoPro ever since. So, you guys are great. I really appreciate it. Well, I'm going to replace this one of these days, but it's working. You know, I made this. It works. So, all right, here we go. Clear your mind. Make sure you got it. This is in there. It's set. It's level. I'll take my glasses off so I can see what I'm doing. It's supposed to have a light in it, but the light has never works. And so let me think. I don't have a light, do I? I can see it pretty good. That's not bad. There you go, the Nebo. That works. Here we go. Just thinking about it. Last thought. If I really blow this, there is ways to fix this, but okay, I'm going to check that again. I'm going to be drilling on the inside. Here we go. All right, there's a hole. Now let's go over here. You know, one thing I thought about getting my eyes fixed, getting LASIK or something like that, or even a lens replacement, because my vision is terrible. This is like a 7.5 correction. But the fact is, when I take my glasses off, I got really great close-up vision. And if I got my eyes fixed, then I'll be dropping glasses all the time. You know, so when I'm fly fishing, I have prescription sunglasses. And, you know, I just drop them off my nose and I can tie flies. And I thought, yeah, there's some chances to ruining your eyes with surgery. Okay, here we go. I'm going to check it. How do we do? Here we go. This is more, here we go. Ah, that's beautiful. Look at that. We bisected that hole really good. I mean, I'm super happy with that. Bisected it that way really good. Here's a short stack. I like that. I like that. It might be, no, it's pretty damn perfect. If it was any way off, it might be back just a little bit this way, but I'd be okay with that because remember the base side of the saddle is going to be coming back a little bit. So, you know, in 70s, I skewed it back further. I don't do it quite, like here's a 70s bridge. And I bet when we run this up here like this, yeah, look at this, see? See, the 70s holes are quite a bit further back. And I do that intentionally to give a little bit more room so that pin is not right up against the saddle, because I know that the saddle slot is going to be coming back. So 70s are different, you know, they're back. Pretty sure all of these are, yeah. These are modeled after a 50s bridge, and 50s bridges are back a little bit further from 30s. Yeah, so these are all really good. So probably have to go get another set of those, but you can adjust them close enough. So I'm very happy with this hole. Now, what we're going to do, find my glasses, put them back on. There we go. take my jig. Where'd my jig go? Here. Here's your E hole. This is an E. Now I can run this drill bit through here, and I can anchor it like that. And now I've got a good anchor. Now the problem is it just wobbles back and forth because of this. But what I'm going to do, oh, that's good. Right there. Right there. Okay. I'm going to get it lined up very evenly on that front edge here. And if this was just a little bit bigger, it'd be perfect, and I wouldn't have to do that. But I'd still have to make a ledge, you know. You'd have to get all that lined up perfectly. I think this needs to go just a smidge right there. Okay. Now again, the drill press is going to take care of a little bit of inaccuracies here. Because I guarantee that super sharp brad point is going to want to go where it's supposed to go. So we'll get this up here. Get it as stable as I can on this bench. Like that. Get another clamp. This isn't going to take much pressure. I just need, come on, a little bitty clamp. There we go. I just need to hold it, you know. All right, here we go. Let's see if we can see this. You can see this? There we go. Now, so I just add this clamp to the edge of the bench just to hold it in place for a minute. Double check this forward edge here. Let me get the camera out of the way for a sec. Alright, here we go. Good to go. Now, pick up that little bitty transfer punch. And what we're going to do, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this side. I'll slip it in there. And just the gentlest tap. I just want a very, very small hole here. And it's tight. If I got one of them, I'm going to be fine. I can put this jig back in here. As long as I got one hole. I missed one. That's okay. So what I've done is I've got these holes in here right now. And you can see them. They're very, very light. But that's what I want. I want that smallest hole that I can possibly see. Tiny little hole. So that gives me more accuracy now when I bring this one over. This one. That is beautiful. That is absolutely as close as I can humanly do. That is actually bisecting that hole. That's as good as I can do. Smack dab in the center. Let's check it from here one more time. Okay, it needs to be on the forward edge of that hole. Forward edge of this hole, which is good. That's fine. So what I'm going to do, I really only wanted to mark these two because now this is my chance to correct any kind of little angle I need to get with the jig. So I want this hole to go on the forward edge right there. So now I'm going to bring my big punch in, and I'm going to punch that hole on the forward edge, okay? Get down here at its level. Angle it just a little. Pop. Looks good. Yeah, let's check that. I don't know if there's a better way to do this or not. I'm making this up. You know, I'm not a machinist. I'm just doing something that makes sense, and there we go. Bisect it. Okay, watch this hole. So there's the hole. And as this slides over, it covers up half the hole. That's bisected. Pretty good. Pretty good. So, we'll go back over to the drill press. I'm going to drill the second hole. That gives me the 2 points for my jig, and now I feel pretty confident about punching holes in that jig. However, yeah, I'm going to do that first, okay? All I really need is that B string. All I need is that B string. I'll get it. But we're going to drill this hole. You might as well watch. If you don't want to watch, you can fast forward. I'm going to get a new camera, too. I've been researching cameras, and I looked at Ted Woodford's thing, you know, and Ted gets some really, really nice close-ups. And he's got like 11,500 subscribers, and I have 8. Now, he's got 143 subscribers. A lot of subscribers. It's because of the camera. But I like his close-ups. And so I talked to him very briefly about what kind of camera he's using. I talked to a couple of other people. So I might be moving to a different camera. I don't know. The GoPro does a good job, except that it doesn't focus really super close. But, man, it's convenient. Here we go. That thing's pretty good. That little Nebo light. Okay, I'm going to get this in there, right there. I like it. Two holes now. 2 holes in the bridge. We're moving up in the world. You know, this is a 1938 D18, like I said. So I'm being so incredibly picky. But the fact is, being picky pushes you to do a better job. And so now that I've got that, now that I see how helpful that fence is, I will never drill holes again without that fence, because that fence, it just drops you in the same distance every single time. And you can put the fence where you wanted, what you need to do. And, you know what I would really love to have? I'd like to have a fence with sliders on top so that you could slide them over to the next, 0.48. Slide that stop over, move the bridge over, drill the hole, slide the stop, move the bridge, drop the hole. That would be really good. Except then you're gonna have to have accurate stoppers. So you're gonna have to figure out how to make accurate movements. And I think, you know what, the way to do it would be like the Stumac bridge slotting jig, which I'm going to be using for this, where you have 2 fences, and you got a fence here and a fence behind it. And then you move that second fence back a certain distance, and you measure that, and then you slide this fence back to it, and there you go. You got that measurement. That's the way to do it. 2 fences on a little jig like that, and then you can put the bridge down there like this, and you'd move that fence over, whatever this next distance needs to be, and slide your bridge over and drill your hole, slide your bridge, drill your hole, boom, 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 man. You could replicate it, and you could do it for whatever hole spacing you wanted. 2 1/8 of an inch. I'd have the measurements. I need to make one, don't I? And I would make it out of plexiglass and not wood. I'd make it out of plexiglass or acrylic or something like that, where it's clear, you could see through it. It's not going to warp. What's the white stuff? HPTE? That kind of stuff? Something plastic. Yeah. All right, it's going to be my next project. Okay, how'd I do on this one? Here's a hole in from the edge. Let's see where. Yeah, gosh, that's beautiful. Man, that's perfect. Oh, gosh, that is so good. That is absolutely dead through the center. Man, I love that. I got both measurements. Dead through the center hole. And they're not going to fit the guitar. You watch. You know, I'm reverse engineering this stupid thing. So, that's pretty good. Now, that is exact as I can possibly do. So, now I've got this 1/8 of an inch. Put that through here. And that's an A. I need another 1/8 inch bit, which I should have plenty of. 3/32. I think this is a 1/8. Yeah, that's a 1/8. It's actually a 3/32. Okay, where are you? Is that you? That's you. Right there. And that's you right there. Here we go. Got him. Had him. Right there. The bit's sliding up a little bit. Okay. You know what? If I just clamp the whole thing at one shot on this, let's see. Let me just tie it out of there. I just need it to stay in place. Right there. It's slipping. I think I'm just going to hold it. This will keep sliding out. Okay? But I think the B is the only one I really needed to get, so I'm just going to put it in there. Are we in? We're in. We got it. I like that. Broke my jig. That's okay. It still works. Might be easier that way. I could put putty on this too and tape. Stick it on there and make it work, but it's good enough. Okay, I got all my holes now. Got them all lined out right here. Another thing I can do to check these, just to be sure, is measure the suckers. So I know I want 380, 480, 470, 460. So if I measure these holes, what do I get here? Let's get down here and look. Just to see. Doesn't cost me anything to do this. So I'm going to put that right in that hole. I'm not going to look at the dial. Okay, I'd like to see 470. Not bad. 475. That's not bad. Not bad. Let's see what we get this way. Drop it into that hole. These toes are really tiny, so these ought to work good. I'd like to see 460. 465. That's consistent. That's okay. Because the ends match, you know, so as long as I'm getting some sort of graduation here, graduation, 450 would be good. It's 460, 458, that's all right. What do we got on the last one? Which I can't do because of this. That looks good, though. That looks good. We got some graduation going on here because from the first one is clearly, oh yeah, I'm having to move the calipers. Okay, 480 would be good. 490, okay? So I'm at least 480. And when I move over to the small side over here, 480 goes clear to the other side of the hole. Let me show you what I mean. So, in other words, I'm not so possessed about the individual spaces because those are so small. But as long as I have some graduation going on here, so we take this one, and I got, golly, from the top, I'm going to get 480. And you bring that 480 over to this side, and it goes almost to the far side of this hole over here. So you know that the treble side is tighter than the bass side, and that's really the main thing. I'm getting some graduations here. They might not be the exact graduations, but they're a consistent graduation. And, you know, we're talking 5/1000ths of an inch here, which is that much. It's as good as I can do. As good as you can do, too. So if I was I'm not going to fudge any of these. And in fact, I'm not even going to punch too much of a hole. I need a little bit more for the brad bit, but not too much. But you know, I'm not even going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let the brad bit punch it. So I'm not going to punch a hole that influences anything. But what I mean by that is if I punch a hole, there's a possibility the drill bit's going to fall into that hole. I don't want to do that. So I've got a marker. I've got a good enough marker here. So I'm going to let the brad point punch it. So I'm going to bring these over here. Bring the drill bit down. And see, that wants to be just slightly forward of my marker hole. But I trust this jig here more than I do the other jig. Because this is the drilling jig and this one's consistent. If I had punched this hole deeper, the bit would be influenced by it. And I don't want that. So that's why I didn't drill it any deeper. So the only one I'm really concerned about right now is this one right here. This one, this measurement. And if I had those adjustable stops I was talking about, I would just slam this into the stop and I would be good to go. I'm going to build one of those. I need to find out where to get the little thumb screws. Dude, that's it right there. Yeah, just a smidge. I need to get a dust particle over right there. Boom. So I let that drill bit punch the hole. And I can do that for all of them, and I can measure them again if I want to. Which I'm probably going to do. Another dust particle over. There you go, right there. Got it. Boom. That's okay. It's going to get better. The more I do, the easier this is going to get. And the more confident I'll be in doing this. This is not bad. I admire the ability to get this more precise. But it's kind of like a bolt-on neck. People ask about bolt-on necks. Aren't they easier to reset? Well, not really, because, you know, the bolt allows you to just, you know, check the neck angle. When I do a bolt-on neck, I ended up bolting it on about a dozen times to make sure I've got the neck angle right before I really lock it down. You still got to glue the fingerboard extension on, you know. So because I can get it perfect, I spend a whole lot of time actually getting it perfect. Yeah, a little micrometer. Like one of my archery sites, you know, there's archery sites that have got little micrometers. Although, you know, you'd have to have extremely fine thread because I'm just breathing on this to make it move. That looks pretty good. And what's better is the B-string hole was right. So the B-string hole dropped right into my little pin mark. Yeah, so that one changed a little bit because we changed the angle. So these are sitting right on the front end of that pencil on. And you probably wouldn't have to measure this if you didn't want to, but I like to measure stuff. $450, which is what it should be. I was trying to make it $460, and I just kept coming back to $450. Not that, oh gosh, I know it's not going to be right, but no, it's actually right because that's the treble side. So, yeah, and this one's going over just a hair up there. 460. Oh, this one's going over 470. 480. What can I tell you? Right there. All right, we're ready to drill these. We're ready to drill them. Got the right bridge. This one. Here we go. Yep. You notice I'm not drilling all the way through. I will do the final drilling on the guitar, most likely. I need a backing board, but anyway, I'm going to do my first, I might come back up here with the backing board and go through, but I like to drill these holes partially first, and then I'll come back in and finish them up. And there's various reasons to do that. Should have shut it off before I moved it, but I was thinking about something. Okay, right there. Right there. Here we go. I should wear safety glasses too, but there's nothing spitting up on it, you know. If it was metal, oh, absolutely. You know, if I was drilling metal, believe me, but I wouldn't be doing it this accurately and everything. This is just, the bit's going really slow. There's nothing kicking up. All right, we're committed now. Let's see how we did. That's the wrong one entirely. Here's our gauge. Man, that is as good. That's as good as I can humanly do it. That is splitting every single one of those holes just perfectly. And I've already measured these. Nothing I can do about it now. So there they go. I'll tell you what I could do, just for fun. We're going to measure the last two. So we're going to put the calipers on here using this. And we're going to measure this space. And that's 480. And we come over to here. And it is 455. 480 to 455. So it's smaller. It's graduated. It looks good, you know, looking at it. Looks like the same amount of space here. I know it's the same amount of space from the wings. And I know these are the same distance in because I checked that the other day. So we've got holes. I'm going to drill through. I'm going to go all the way through. Need a piece of backing wood, which TJ's conveniently supplied. Stick that on there. We're going to go all the way through on it. I have to adjust my table. I'll adjust my table. I need a thinner piece of wood. Thinner piece of wood. I don't have a thinner piece of wood. Well, I'll adjust the table. When you move the table, it's going to move this way a little bit, and that's going to throw your measurement off, but I'll just get it back on again, so not the end of the world. Let's see if that got it. Let's come back over here. You can might as well watch and see what I'm doing. So here's my backing board, and hopefully it's going to go back in here. And it doesn't, see, because I moved the table. So, oh yeah, and plus it's sitting on, there we go, now it'll do it. Okay, we're good. We're good. All right, I'm going to drill through. Most times I don't drill through. I do it on the guitar. But in this case, I'm going to go through because I want to see where those holes are going to be. I'm going to put it on top of the guitar, and I don't want to take any chances of moving this thing any way or another. These holes are actually big enough to get the reamer into, and I'll just do the final setting with the reamer. Okay. All right, nice. Yay! No chair out. Looks good. All right. Wow. Who knew that drilling holes could be so hard? Now, obviously, I made it harder on myself here because you didn't have to check it 15,000 times. You could have just, you know, a lot of guys do that, but I wanted to see how good I could get it. So, and this is the first one I've done like this. It's using all the tools. I just wanted to check, double check, triple check, cross check. I thought the cross check was really interesting because, like I said, one of the cross checks I did was to measure the fence. Measured the fence, and then I stuck the bridge that I did 2 days ago up on the fence, and it was the same. That drill bit went right into those holes perfectly. So that confirmed to me that I could replicate this, and that was confidence inspiring. My little jig broke, but it's not a big deal because I only use it for the front half, and so if I was to get this exactly right and make a fence for it so that I could slap it on there like that, it would be pretty good because then you could push back. But I'm just testing that, you know. You can also sit there and measure each hole with the calipers, and that's not a bad way to do it, you know. Except that if you get the two E's, the jig's kind of handy, you know. It is kind of handy. God, those holes look good. That's beautiful. Nice and straight. So I'm going to get the guitar, and I'm going to put this bridge on it. I'm going to sight down through there, and I'm sure it's going to line up because here's the original bridge. And you can do it like that, too. Probably this way. And again, your hand holding this thing is so accurate as your hand hold, but, you know, that's beautiful. Right there. That's beautiful. Certainly good enough. Yeah, you could probably come out just about the same by gluing this to a piece of wood and drilling straight through here again. And but I'm not always going to have this bridge, and that's the thing is, this bridge is not going to always be here. It's going to go home with the guitar, and I'm not going to have it. So that's why I want the jigs that I can trust, and I want a technique that I can trust without having the guitar around, without having this original bridge around. So that's the part of the reason for doing all this thing, and cross-checking and checking and checking and checking and checking and checking, just to make sure that I can get it without my little babysitter here, without my little hand holder, you know. It's one thing to have the original bridge around to use as a model, but what if you don't have it for a model? Well, I'll tell you one thing. I do have this bridge for models. This is the Stu Mack bridge, and I know what's wrong with it, and I have fixed a few things on it, and this is now a pretty good model. So, you know, there's my jig right there. There's my model. So, that's good. Okay? So here's TJ's bridge. Slightly reworked, just a little bit. I kept his original curves. I did all that. The shape is beautiful. I mean, that saved me hours and hours of time. But like I said, I've also got it jigged up here to where I can duplicate this and make these curves consistently, accurately, repeatably. So I'm happy with that. But, you know, this is a good bridge. I don't think I'm beating it up. TJ knows a lot more than I do. It's just that on this particular guitar, on this particular 1938, I wanted to match these wings, and I got them a little bit bigger. I mean, you can look at them like this, and my wings are still just a little bit thicker than this, but not much. They match the other 38 pretty good. So there's a little bit of variability going on there. So, you know, like I said, how many times have I said it now? You've got to make a choice between maintaining original mistakes or improving on the situation. I like to have stiffer wings because if the wings are really, really weak, the bridge will flex in the middle, and then it cracks out on the ends, and it's not very strong. And especially on this guitar, it's a forward X brace, so that means that this bridge is an important brace. If I had my way, those wings should be 1.125 inch thick. You know, they'd be 125 and 130. They would be exactly what it was when TJ sent it to me. But in this case, I am trying to make it a little bit more original. But again, if it was my guitar and I was building it my way, and I could convince every single person that ever looked at the guitar again, if I could convince them of the importance of having slightly thicker wings, then I would, without a doubt, have gone with 125 on the wings, because I just think it's stronger and it makes the whole bridge a nice rigid system to flap the X braces instead of having a system like this that twists in the middle. But you know, it's a reasonable compromise. It's still fairly stiff. When I picked up one of these other ones here, one of my chest bridges that I got down to about 90 was pretty flexible. And you know, his original bridge, I can flex it. You know, I can flex this thing. So this bridge is going to distort, and I prefer thicker wings. So that's why I left these just a little bit thicker. I got them thinner, but still a little bit thicker. And, you know. There we go. Got that done. That's a big relief. I'm happy with that. I'm confident with it. Looks great. It'll be simple now to drill the holes and finish them up through the top. Like I said, I'm big enough now. I've got holes big enough that I can run the reamer through them. And there's, you know, the reamer's going to wobble back and forth, and you're not going to get them perfect. The original holes are not perfect. But we got a good start at least. We got that part done. Now I'm going to go ahead and get the guitar out, I guess, and I'm going to glue this bridge on. So we might have a video on how to use hot hide glue. I need to think about this because I need to go do some other stuff. I'm going to make sure I have time for that glue to dry, and I think I do. So we're ready to glue it on. Gonna do a video next on tips and tricks of using hot hide glue that you can look for. Alright, see you later.